The desert in late summer did not care if a man was tired or lonely. It just lay there, pale and empty and hot enough to strip the thoughts right out of his head. Cole Hart had been riding the dry gullies since dawn, checking the few traps he still bothered with, when he heard a sound that did not belong to wind or horses. It was a roar and a sob tangled together, too deep to be a woman's cry, too raw to be an animal. It rolled off the rock and stopped his horse in its tracks. He followed it down into a narrow wash where the sun barely reached. That was where he saw her. A giant of a woman lay half on her side in the sand, one bare leg locked in the steel jaws of a trap he had never seen before. The iron teeth had chewed deep into muscle, and blood had turned the dust dark. She was Apache, he knew that at a glance. Dark braided hair fell down her back, beadwork at her throat, leather fringe at shoulders thick as a barn beam. Even half-curled, she looked taller than any man Cole had ever thrown a saddle with, all height and hard muscle, like someone had carved her out of oak and then set her loose on a battlefield. What she did not look like was helpless. Her big hands were pressed into the sand, every part of her coiled tight. When her eyes found him, there was no plea in them, only a flat warning. Her fingers closed around the knife at her belt so fast it made his own heartbeat jump. In slow, hoarse English, she managed 3 words. "Come closer. Die." Cole swung down anyway. He left his rifle in the saddle scabbard and opened his hands so she could see he was not reaching for steel. Up close, he could hear her breathing, slow and measured, the way a person breathed when they refused to give pain the satisfaction of a scream. The trap was anchored to a chain bolted into a buried post. This was no coyote rig. Someone had built it to hold a full-grown person until they came back for what was left. "You step in this?" he asked quietly. She did not answer. Her jaw clenched, eyes flicking between his face and his hands. Cole knelt beside the mangled leg. Heat poured off her skin, wrong and high from the hours she had spent pinned in that wash. If he walked away, fever and coyotes would finish what the iron had started. If he stayed, whoever set that trap might come looking, and they would not be pleased to find a white cowboy putting his hands on an Apache woman. The release bar was stiff with rust. Cole worked it steady, feeling every twitch in her body through the sand. Once, she jerked forward, and the knife lifted, and for a second he thought she might drive it into his neck just to make sure he was not toying with her. Then the jaws groaned open, and the trapped leg came free with a wet sound that turned his stomach. She gasped, the first crack in that stone-faced strength. Cole tore his neckerchief and shirt into strips and wrapped her calf as best he could. The wounds were bad, but not hopeless if he could keep dirt out. He slid his arms under her shoulders and knees to lift her. The weight almost drove him to his knees. She was built like a bull, every pound bone and power, yet her head dropped against his chest like a child's, her breath hot through his dusty shirt. The sensible thing would have been to lay her in the shade with a canteen and ride out of that disputed country as fast as his horse could carry him. Instead, Cole turned his gelding toward a little spring hidden in a split of the canyon wall, a place almost no one else used. As he rode, he kept his eyes on the ridgelines. Once, he thought he saw a shape against the sky, a rider sitting his horse and not moving, just watching. By the time he reached the spring and eased her down under the rock overhang, the day was sliding toward evening. He bathed the torn flesh as gently as he could and tightened the bandage while she drifted in and out, murmuring in Apache. When he finally sat back on his heels, his hands tacky with her blood, he knew 2 things for certain. Someone had set that trap for her on purpose. And someone else, up on those ridges, had seen a white cowboy lift the Apache chief's daughter into his arms and carry her away. Night came down slow over the little spring, turning the canyon walls purple and then black. Cole kept the fire low, just enough to boil water and keep the coyotes back. The big woman slept in broken stretches, sometimes breathing easy, sometimes jerking like she was fighting something only she could see. Once, just before midnight, her hand shot out and caught his wrist in a grip that felt like it could snap bone. Her eyes opened, clear and sharp in the firelight. "Why you stay?" she asked, the words thick but steady. "You ride away, no trouble." Cole looked at her, at the bandage already seeping through with red, at the fine beadwork at her throat that said she belonged to someone important. "Saw boot tracks," he said quietly. "Men who set that thing for you. If I ride off, they find you before your own people do." Her grip loosened just a little. "You fear my people." He almost smiled. "I fear everybody, but I fear being the kind of man who walks away from somebody dying a whole lot more." She stared at him for a long breath, then let his wrist go. "Naya," she said. "That my name." She closed her eyes again, and this time, when sleep took her, it seemed to land a little softer. The next sound that mattered was not the coyotes. It was horses, many of them, hooves on rock, low voices rolling across the canyon, not English, carrying command. Cole put out the fire with his boot and stood where they could see his empty hands. Warriors appeared along the rim like the rock itself had decided to grow eyes and bows. A dozen silhouettes against the paling sky, every one of them aimed his way. Naya woke and pushed herself up on her elbows with a hiss of pain. She called out in Apache, her voice rough but strong, and the whole rim shifted. You did not have to know the language to understand what she had said. She had told them she was alive. One rider came down the steep wall as if the horse had been born on stone. The man on its back was older, broad through the chest, hair braided with gray and eagle feather. His face was the kind you saw once and did not forget, all hard lines and deep patience. He slid from the saddle and walked straight past Cole to Naya. His big hand touched her hair, her shoulder, the bandaged leg, checking without asking. She spoke fast and low, gesturing once toward the rusted trap still lying open in the sand, then toward Cole. The chief's eyes finally turned on the cowboy. "You free her," he said in careful English. Cole nodded. "Found her in that thing. Took it off. Tried to keep her from bleeding out." The chief looked at the twisted iron, then at the faint marks where boot heels had chewed up the sand hours earlier. His jaw tightened. He spoke sharply in Apache to the warriors above, and 3 of them wheeled and vanished, already hunting the men who had set it. Then he stepped closer to Cole until they were almost chest to chest. "I am Greyhawk," he said. "She is my eldest daughter." The word daughter hit like a thrown stone. "You could leave," Greyhawk went on. "You see trap, you see blood, you ride away. You do not. You touch my child. You fight men who come back. You stay here when we surround you." His gaze did not waver. "Why?" Cole could have talked about guilt and lonely nights and a ranch fire from long ago, but none of that would make sense out here. "Felt wrong to leave her," he said simply. "Felt like if I did that, I'd be someone I don't want to be." Greyhawk stood very still. Then he nodded once, slow, like a man settling something with himself. "Our law is old," he said. Man who saves chief's child, who stays when danger comes, who lays hands to heal, not to take. That man is tied to her now. Her honor and his honor, not separate anymore. He glanced down at Naya, who was watching both of them with no expression at all. Tomorrow's sun stands high. You will stand beside her in my village. You will speak yes or no in front of my people. If you say yes, you marry her by our ways. If you say no, you walk away with nothing, and we forget your name. His eyes hardened just a fraction. But if you say no, and then speak of us to white men, if you bring trouble here, we hunt you like the ones who set that trap. They rode to the village just after sunrise. Cole sat his horse in the middle of a ring of warriors, not tied, but not exactly free either. Naya rode beside him on a fresh paint mare Greyhawk had brought, her injured leg bound to the saddle to keep it steady. The early light picked out the lines of the valley ahead, the smoke from cooking fires, the circle of homes made of poles and hide and brush. Children ran to the edge of the village and then stopped short when they saw him, half hiding behind their mother's skirts. Greyhawk led them straight to the biggest shelter at the center. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of smoke and sage. Weapons hung from the posts, the kind that had already seen their share of blood. Greyhawk poured water and handed the first cup to Cole. It was a small thing, but Cole understood it meant something. Men who set trap, the chief said. They do not give up. They come back. They take more. My daughter burns their cages, frees those taken. They lay iron teeth in her path to pay her back. His voice dropped. Those men are not only danger. He pointed one thick finger toward the village outside, toward the murmur of voices in the dawn. Some here say I am old. Say I make tribe weak, bringing white man close to fire. They want no change, no new law, even if old ways break under white hunger. They will test you, Cole Hart. They will test me. Tomorrow is not only about marriage, it is about who still holds the heart of this people. Cole sat there with the clay cup in his hands and felt the weight of a life he had not asked for settle onto his shoulders. Somewhere under the same roof, the giant woman he had carried out of the trap sat with her leg throbbing and her jaw set, waiting to see what kind of man he really was. Morning in the Apache village started slow and steady, like a song everyone already knew. Smoke drifted up from low fires. Women ground corn on flat stones. Children chased one thin yellow dog until a sharp word from a grandmother sent them scattering. Cole sat on a log near Greyhawk's shelter with his hat in his hands and the sun just over the rim of the valley, feeling like the only man who did not know his part in the day. They had not tied him. That almost made it worse. He could see his sorrel gelding hitched by the pony line, ears flicking as if waiting for him to swing into the saddle and ride back to the empty stretches of land he knew by heart. Every now and then a warrior passed close, eyes sliding over him without a word. Not friendly, not openly hostile, just measuring. A stranger held in place by something more complicated than rope. Naya came limping across the packed earth with a short stick for a cane and her braids swinging heavy down her back. Someone had rewrapped her leg more carefully. The bandage was neat and tight. She sat down beside him with a grunt, and for a moment they only watched the village move around them. "You sleep?" she asked. Cole snorted softly. "Not much." "Good," she said. "Means you still thinking. A man who sleeps too easy on a night like that, I do not trust him." He looked over at her profile, strong and calm. "Your father says I stand up at noon and say yes or no in front of everybody." Naya nodded once. "That is our way. Not behind closed door, not in whisper." People see your face when you choose, so they know how to carry your name after. Cole turned his hat in his hands. What do you want me to say? Her dark eyes stayed on the cooking fires, not on him. I want man who stays when it gets hard, not man who rides away when his heart feels too heavy. But I do not want prisoner. I already fought Iron Teeth once. The words settled deep. Cole thought of the blackened beams of his brother's ranch, of a woman in town who had once looked at him the way Naya was not looking at him now, and how he had run from that shame, because staying meant facing it every day. You don't even know me, he said quietly. Not really. Naya's mouth twitched like she almost smiled. I know you hear scream in desert and ride toward it, not away. I know you put your bare hands on bloody iron and do not flinch. I know you stand between me and 4 men with guns when you could hide. That more truth than some couples get in 10 years. Before he could answer, a shadow fell over both of them. Cole looked up into a younger face than Greyhawk's, hard and handsome in a sharp way. The man was tall, but not like Naya, lean as a spear, with a single red feather tied high in his hair. His jaw was clenched so tight the muscles jumped. 2 other warriors hovered behind him, their eyes already cold. Naya's fingers closed around her stick like it was a weapon. Raven, she said flatly. You come to watch like vulture, or you have something to say? Raven's gaze flicked from her bandaged leg to Cole and back again. When he spoke, his English was rougher than Greyhawk's, full of edges. I come to see if story is true. Chief's daughter brought home white man, and now we are all told to clap hands and call it honor. His eyes pinned Cole, full of open challenge. You step in one trap in desert, Raven said, and now you step into bigger one here. You think you understand our ways after one night? Cole kept his voice even. I don't think I understand much at all. Raven's mouth curved in a humorless smile. Good. Remember that when you stand in the circle. Some of us do not bow so easy. We remember when Greyhawk would rather fight than bend. Now he brings outsider into our fire and calls it the will of the spirits. Maybe his eyes grow old. Maybe someone else should lead those who still see clear. Naya pushed herself to her feet, pain flashing across her face, but not slowing her tongue. You speak big for man who waits in shadows while others free captives, she snapped. Those traitors set traps because I broke their cages. Where were you that day, Raven? A muscle jumped in his cheek. Hunting, guarding other borders, not playing lone hero so the chief will look at me like proud father. The last 2 words dripped with something bitter. Cole did not need a translator to feel it. Jealousy had a smell to it, old and sour. Raven stepped closer until they were nearly nose to nose. You stand beside her today, he told Cole, voice dropping low. But know this, some of us will never accept white blood by our fire. If Chief forgets who we are, others will remember for him. He turned away in a swirl of dust and leather, his 2 friends trailing behind like dark thoughts. Naya let out a breath she had been holding. He wanted to be chief, she said softly. Thinks my father weaker every time he chooses words over blood. Thinks bringing you here is last proof Greyhawk has lost the old fire. Cole watched Raven's back move through the village, saw the way a few younger warriors leaned in when he spoke to them, their faces tight. Is he dangerous? Cole asked. Naya's answer was simple. He is a man who would set his own house on fire if it meant he could stand tallest in the ashes. The rest of the morning crawled. Greyhawk called Cole into the big shelter again and explained pieces of the ceremony, what each step meant, how the tribe would hear his answer as not just yes to a woman, but yes to a people. Outside, voices rose and fell, carrying that same current of something restless under the normal work of the day. Every now and then, Cole caught sight of Raven at the edges of a group, talking low, hands moving in quick, sharp lines. By the time the sun climbed high and the circle began to form in the center of the village, Cole Hart understood one thing very clearly. Saying yes was not just about marrying Naya or paying back a debt. It was about stepping straight into a fight that had started long before he ever rode past that hidden wash. And whatever he chose, there would be people under this sky who wanted him gone, one way or another. By the time the sun stood straight over the valley, the whole village had gathered. The circle on the hard-packed earth looked simple enough, just people standing shoulder to shoulder, old ones with lined faces, children with big eyes peeking around skirts, warriors with lances planted like thin trees. But to Cole it felt like the edge of a cliff. One step forward and there was no going back. Greyhawk stood at the center, bareheaded now, his hair loose down his back. He held a small clay bowl in both hands, water catching the light in a thin, bright line. Naya limped to stand on his right, her chin high, her bad leg wrapped neat. Cole was motioned to his left, close enough to feel the warmth of her shoulder through the leather of his borrowed shirt. For a moment, there was no sound but wind and the low crackle of cooking fires in the distance. Then, Greyhawk spoke. At first, he used only Apache, the words rising and falling in that steady way that sounded like river water over stones. People nodded at certain places. A few murmured responses. Cole caught only the rhythm, not the meaning. Still, he could tell this was not just about him. Old hurts and old promises were walking through the chief's voice. After a while, Greyhawk turned his gaze to Cole and shifted into slow, careful English. "My people," he said. "3 nights ago, my daughter rode into desert to watch over our land. Men who sell human beings set iron teeth for her. A stranger heard her cry and came." His eyes moved over the faces in the circle. "He did not leave her, did not say, 'She is not mine,' and ride away. He put his hands on the same iron that cut her. He bled for her. He stayed when their guns came." He held the bowl out so everyone could see. "Our law is old. When a man saves the life of a chief's child and stays beside her when danger stands close, the spirits tie his path to hers. It is not small thing. It is not only about one man and one woman. It is about who we choose to call our own." Greyhawk turned to Cole. The lines at the corners of his eyes were deeper than they had been that first night. "Cole Hart," he said, voice steady. "You stand in our circle. You know our law now. If you say no, you walk away alone. We will not hunt you. But the debt between you and my daughter will never close clean. If you say yes, you take her fate as your own, her people as your people, her enemies as your enemies. There is no halfway." The whole village seemed to lean in without moving. Somewhere, to Cole's left, a baby fussed and was hushed quick. On the far edge of the circle, he saw Raven standing with his arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes like cold coals. 3 younger warriors stood just behind him, their faces set like they had already decided the answer should be no. Cole looked at Naya, She did not smile. She did not plead. She only met his eyes and gave one small nod, like a rider settling into the saddle before a steep trail. The question from the night before sat between them. What kind of man are you? His life felt like it narrowed to a single thin road. Back then, way he came lay the same empty hills, the same nights talking to horses, and listening to nothing but his own guilt. Forward lay a people who did not quite trust him, a woman who would not let him lie to himself, and trouble that was already stirring under the surface like snakes in dry grass. He heard his own voice before he fully knew it was coming. "I stay," he said. No speech, no excuses, just those two words. A sound went through the circle then, not cheers exactly, more like a low wave of breath. Some faces softened, some did not. Greyhawk's mouth twitched in the closest thing to a smile Cole had seen on him. "Then drink," the chief said. He lifted the bowl and touched it to Cole's lips, then to Naya's. "Water is life," the gesture said. "Now you share it." Naya took his hand. Her grip was firm and dry, not shy. Greyhawk laid his big hands over both of theirs. He spoke in Apache again, words that rolled like thunder far away. When he finished, he stepped back. "What my people see today cannot be broken by any man's anger," he said quietly. "You are tied to us now." Women came forward with woven cloth and looped it over Naya's shoulders and then around Cole's, so for a moment they were held under the same band of bright color. Children laughed and pointed. An old woman with a face like a dried apple reached up and patted Cole's chest, as if testing the strength of his ribs. The air loosened. People began to talk. A few even smiled at him. Not everyone. On the far edge of the circle, Raven had not moved. His eyes were fixed on the cloth that bound Cole and Naya. When he finally turned away, he did not come forward with the others. He walked toward the far side of the village, toward the low structures where food and water were kept, his two closest friends falling in behind him like shadows peeling loose from rock. The rest of the day tried to bend itself into celebration. Meat roasted over open flames. Drums started up, soft at first, then louder as younger warriors relaxed. Children chased each other between the shelters. Naya's sister smeared a thumb of red paint in a line across Cole's cheek and laughed when he flinched. But under it all, there was a tightness he could feel but not quite name. He noticed it in the way some women kept glancing toward the storage huts, in the way Greyhawk's eyes stayed on Raven's side of the camp a little too often, in the way Naya's fingers never strayed far from the knife at her belt, even while she teased him about his clumsy steps when she tried to show him a simple dance. As dusk fell, the sky went purple over the red cliffs, and people drifted toward their shelters. The fires burned lower. Somewhere, a coyote called. Cole lay down on a mat near the entrance of the small wickiup they told him was his now, and listened to Naya's breathing slow as sleep finally took her. For the first time in a long time, his chest did not feel hollow. He was almost under when a new smell slid into the night. At first, it was faint, buried under sage and smoke and dust. Then it thickened, harsh, wrong. Cole's eyes flew open. He sat up fast. There was shouting now, sharper than camp talk, cutting across the quiet. He shoved aside the flap and stepped into the cool air. On the far side of the village, an orange glow licked up into the dark like a tongue. Fire. Not from a cooking pit, from the low roofs near the water jars. And over the crackle of flame he heard a voice he recognized, ragged with anger. Raven's. Cole woke to heat on his face and a shout outside. "Fire!" He dragged his boots on and ran. The storage huts near the water racks were burning. Dry thatch roared, sparks jumping toward rows of clay jars that kept the village alive when rain forgot them. Greyhawk stood in the smoke, voice steady. "Wet the racks," he called in Apache, then in English. "Save the jars first. We can rebuild wood." Naya limped beside him, hair loose, knife in hand. "Look how it burns," she said. "Both ends at once. Someone fed this fire." Cole followed her gaze. On a low rise beyond the flames stood Raven with a second torch, its tip still burning. "Look at him," Raven shouted, pointing at Cole. "First he brings a trap into our circle. Now he brings a white face into our lodges. Our chief gives our dead, our daughter, our law to a stranger. Is this Apache?" Fear moved through the crowd faster than flame. Men hesitated between buckets and anger. The fire climbed higher, licking toward the first row of jars. Cole did not ask. He sprinted to the racks, wrapped his arms around a post, and heaved. Clay jars crashed, some breaking, some rolling. Water spilled in a heavy sheet that soaked the ground before the flames. The woman cursed him, then saw the wet strip holding the fire back, and knocked over the next row herself. Raven's laugh was sharp. "See, he breaks what feeds us. He acts like he knows better than our own people." Cole straightened, chest burning. "I don't know better than anyone," he said, voice rough. "I just know fire likes dry ground." Naya stepped where all could see her. "You lit this," she said to Raven. "You would burn our water and our elder's breath just to win an argument." Raven's jaw tightened. "I would burn a lie before I watch our chief trade us away. First a white trap, now a white husband. Next soldiers, traitors. They always follow." He moved down the slope, bringing the torch close to a line of brush that ran straight toward Greyhawk's lodge and the sleeping children. Cole saw the path of that fire as clear as a trail in dust. His body moved before he thought. He hit Raven around the waist. The torch flew. They went down hard in the dirt at the edge of the heat. Raven swung wild and caught Cole on the cheek. Pain flashed white. Cole drove his shoulder in, pinned one arm, and twisted until a knife slipped from Raven's hand. "Look," Cole gasped in his ear. "You say you love this place, but it's you trying to burn it." Below them, Naya stamped out the fallen torch with sharp, hard blows. The big flames had already shrunk, beaten down by wet blankets and buckets. What was left hissed and smoked. Greyhawk climbed the slope slowly. Smoke had darkened the lines on his face, but his eyes were clear. He looked at the scorched roofs, the muddy strip where the water had spilled, his niece with her heel on the dead torch, his sister's son pinned under a stranger's hands. "The fire told the truth tonight," he said. "It showed us one heart so afraid of change it would scorch its own people, and one that ran toward the heat for water he has not even drunk." He faced Raven first. "From this night, you will not sit in council," he said. A rough murmur rose. Greyhawk lifted his hand. "You are still of our blood. You will work and eat with us. But a man who would burn the circle may not speak for it." Then the chief turned to Cole. "You ask what you are," he said quietly. "Tonight you answered. You put our lives ahead of your own place. That is what a son of this land should do." The words landed deep in a place that had been empty since the last time Cole loved anyone. Later, when the last embers were stamped out and the sky was full of stars again, Cole sat at the edge of camp. The village behind him sounded like a tired body catching its breath. "Naya," lowered herself beside him, bad legs stretched, shoulder warm against his. For a while, they said nothing. "My people will argue about tonight," she said at last. "Some will say Father betrayed old ways. Some will say you brought trouble." "Maybe I did," Cole said. "Troubles followed me a long time." She shook her head. "No, trouble was already here. You only stepped on it before it grew." She studied his face. "You could leave now. No one would blame you." He looked back at the low shapes of the lodges, the dark, wet line where the water had stopped the flames, the place where children had watched him with wide eyes instead of fear. "I've been walking away from burning things for years," he said softly. "Didn't save a single house. Maybe it's time I stay and see what grows after the fire." Naya's smile was small and real. She rested her head against his shoulder. "Then stay," she murmured. "Stay and help us remember that fear is not our law. The circle is." The desert night wrapped around them, not empty now, but full of breath, low voices, and the soft crackle of cooling ash. Out past the cliffs, the wind moved over old iron and scattered tracks. In here, by the faint glow of banked coals, a man who had once only known how to run sat among people who had decided to make room for him. If this story kept you company for a little while tonight, my friend, go on and hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're listening from so we can share the next Wild West tale together.